Hi buddy, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be talking about the Targon Meta for patch 7.24b, which I think is likely to continue on into the first patch for Season 8, so 8.1, when the new season starts. I suspect this will all be the same, unless it gets changed at the last minute in like patch notes that haven't been revealed yet. I suspect this will be the same. Okay, so we're going to talk about, well, what is that? What is this Targon meta? Why is it suddenly taken over? And then what are the implications for that in terms of the meta? So in terms of particularly which AD carries are strong and which supports are strong right now. And I'm going to have a more in-depth support tier list once I get the actual patch notes out for 8.1. And then I'll probably do another in-depth AD carry tier list and just a bunch of new stuff for the new season, with tier lists and guides and just everything for all kinds of aspects of the league. If you want to access the Google Doc to follow along, you can find that in the description, and you can also find timestamps if you want to jump around your favorite features. So if you're already familiar with the Targon meta, you think you know most of the stuff about it, you just want to jump to the meta implications, you can go ahead and do that. Okay. So what is the Targon meta? So let's look at Targon's Brace here. So it starts off with Relic Shield, but Targon's Brace is an important component of it. So we can look at Relic Shield first. Okay, so basically you get the 2 health per 10, you get 75 health, and then every time you destroy a minion, then a nearby ally will get, the closest ally will get the amount of gold that minion was worth. So if you kill a cannon minion, it's worth 40 to 45 gold, and then if you kill just a normal minion, the average is going to be about 20 gold. So as a support, obviously you can hold your charges to hit the cannon minion most of the time, but as an AD carry, you have to hit every single minion that you can, so most of the time you're just going to have to hit whatever shows up. So it's going to be like 20 gold on average. So the gold that you share with your partner is going to be a little bit less for AD carries than it will be for AD carry transferring it over to support rather than support transferring it over to AD carry. Okay, a couple of things they added in the preseason. Now it offers heals for 2% of your missing health in addition to the 15. So 2% of your missing health is pretty relevant. I mean, if you get poked out for 200 health, that's an extra 4. So that's an extra, 4 on top of the 15. That's like 25% more healing than it used to offer. So that's pretty good. And it offers Bandit now. So each time a nearby minion dies, then you gain 1 gold for it. And every time you hit an enemy, then with a ranged champion, then you're going to get 3 gold. And this is very important because now this applies to AD carries. Because AD carry would never get banded in the past. There were always other trees and other things they wanted to be doing. Other than getting the bandit. It used to be a mastery in the old system, and now each one of the gold generating items has this. This is also impacting other lanes that are rushing like Frostfang now on really weird champions, but that's a different discussion. But for AD carry, what this means is you're likely going to hit the support or the AD carry 5 times in a minute. That means you hit them once every 12 seconds. It does have an internal 5-second cooldown, so I don't think that's too hardcore. I think that's relatively reasonable that you're going to be proccing this half the time that it's up, right? Because all you have to do is just get 1 auto attack on anybody. So 15 gold per minute would be for 5 hits. You get the 2 gold per 10 that's built into the item. So, 2 gold per 10. There's 6 10-second increments, obviously, in a minute, and so that's going to be 12 gold. You get your 15 gold from hits, and so that ends up being about 27 gold per minute on average that you get, which is 270 gold over a 10-minute laning phase, which, obviously that's going to vary a little bit. But if you just say on average, maybe a laning phase is 10 minutes before the towers fall, then there you have it, okay? And then with just the Relic Shield, it's going to transfer over 30 gold per minute for a support, so it's going to proc every 40 seconds or so. It's probably even a little bit more than that. I was just trying for simple math. If it is... you're getting 20 gold on average per hit as an AD carry, and you're doing this 1.5 times per minute, then that would give you 30 gold on average per minute. The Targon's is 40 gold per minute because it's every 30 seconds you can proc it, and so you're going to be able to proc it twice per minute, so that's going to give you 40. So 20 gold per minion kill, normal relic, 1.5 procs per minute, Targon's 2 procs per minute. So that gives you 400 gold over the course of 10 minutes that goes onto your support. And remember that this is really important gold because of the types of supports that people are running right now. A lot of times supports are rushing things like Face of the Mountain, Knight's Vow, Locket, Redemption. All of these things help the AD carry in a fight. So it's not like it's just wasted gold. Like, oh, it's just gold on the support. A lot of those support items are very, very impactful in team fights, and a lot of times directly impactful on the survivability of the AD carry. So it's not completely wasted gold just because it's not in your pocket. So it's definitely very useful gold. So 400 gold per 10. Not to mention it lets them get their Sightstone faster so they can ward better, and boot so they can roam and return to lane faster so you don't have to wait as long before you can go back out in CS while they're warding. Just all kinds of benefits to it. Okay, the quest still offers about a 300 HP shield. If we step it up and look at this Targon's Brace quest line, you know, at level 10 or so, you're going to get a 300 HP shield. And in most fights, that's going to be charged all the way up. You know, in the Fiesta, you may not have time to recharge it all the way, but it's going to be charged up in a lot of fights. Excuse me. So if you have that, that's about an 800 gold value. Assuming that you don't charge it up in the fight, which you can charge it up during the fight as well. But if you just start with the permanent stacked Targons, or a fully stacked Targons rather, it's 800 gold value. And then the base stats on Targon itself are worth 617 gold. Okay, so it's already like not a terrible value. I mean, you're basically paying, you know, 234 gold, 233 gold for a gold generating item, which is not awful. So that is a 617 gold value. And so overall, after 10 minutes, this item is worth about 2,000 gold in value. Okay, for an 850 gold investment. 10 minutes is not a long time to get that value. So it's about 2,000 gold worth of value for an 850 gold investment. Okay, now this does not include the healing that you get off of these procs. So you do get, don't forget that extra healing, right? You heal for 40 and then 2% of the missing health per proc. And remember, it's only 15 on the normal relic. So you want to update that or upgrade this fairly soon, and you get a free extra, you know, 25 healing in addition to being able to store up more charges and also having them recharge faster and also being able to get the shield. So you want to get this upgraded fast. Now, I'm not sure the exact timing on this. I assume you probably want to... It depends. Like, I think a lot of times you want to get a BF sword and then probably upgrade your Targons there. So BF, Targons, then your Zeal item. But it's going to depend. But you do have an option now where you can just upgrade Targon. Like if you have a kind of a bad back early, right? So maybe you get forced out of lane or whatever. Now you can just spend 500 on this and maybe 300 for a dagger or boots or something like that. So this does give you more options to upgrade. But I assume you probably want to upgrade this sometime after your BF sword before you fully complete Infinity. I'm not sure. It's going to depend on from champion to champion and depending on the game state, how heavily you're winning, how bad you're getting crushed, stuff like that. But it is very useful to update. And this doesn't include the healing that you get off of those procs, which, remember, it heals you and it heals your ally. So it's not just 2% of your missing health and 40. It's really healing your bot lane combined. It's healing you for 80 plus 4% of your missing health. So if you know, are missing 200 health or whatever, then that heal for an extra 8. So it'd be an 88 heal every time you proc this, every 30 seconds, which is a lot. I mean, 88 divided by 30... I have my calculator up here, I can't remember. Let me grab it real quick. So if you're healing for 88 every 30 seconds, it's almost 3 health per second. It's a lot. It's a lot of healing. So 3 health per second is, I mean, that's like reju bead territory. That's more than that. Like 50% of your base health regen. I think the health regen per 5 on someone like Vayne, let me see. Yeah, her health regen's awful. So her health regen is basically, you know, early in the game, it's going to be about, like, maybe 1.5. Realistically, 1.5. So if she gets to 7.5 regen per 5, it's going to be 1.5 health per 5. Or 1.5 health per second. This is giving you 3. So it's like 2 reju beads basically worth of healings. That's an additional 300 gold worth of value, roughly, if you want to include the healing that you're going to get off of Targon's itself. Once again, that depends on how much health you're missing and making sure that your ally is close to you when you're getting... Of course, they are going to be close to you when you get these procs, because they have to be for the procs to activate. So that's like another 300 gold value, roughly. So that's about a 2,300 gold value instead of 2,000. And so even if you don't count that, 2,000 divided by the 850 cost is 235% efficiency. If we count it at 2,300... it's about a 270%, 271% cost efficiency. So that's just insane. That's so much value. And obviously it's going to keep giving you value throughout the entire game, right? So it's going to be about 60 gold per minute, depending on, you know, what you do. Assuming that you're using all of the procs and just based on this base healing that you get, it's going to be, you know, roughly 60 gold per minute. So that's super, super efficient. I mean, that's, if you include the regen in the calculation there, you know, it's double the efficiency of Doran's Blade. Doran's Blade is just 134% efficient, right? You get 8 attack damage, 80 health, 3% lifesteal. Okay? You notice these stats are very similar to what you get on Relic, too. The Relic gives you 75 health early on. Gives you 75 health. Now, and it does give you effectively probably even more than... I'm not going to do the math on the 3% lifesteal versus Relic procs, but I assume it's probably similar, if not more, for Relic. It upgrades into Targon's, so it ends up being much more powerful. And, you know, you're missing the 8 AD, which is definitely a thing early, right? So you have 8 times 35. That's the biggest thing. I mean, that's 280 value of it. So that's the thing, is it is going to hurt you. It is going to make it a little bit harder to last hit, so you kind of have to practice and play around that. But it's definitely worth it. I mean, especially now, we're going to talk about sort of how this meta is shifting a little bit more, but it just fits in perfectly with kind of the ecosystem of the types of AD carries that people are playing right now, the types of supports, and the other types of runes and items that people are going to be getting. So it's a really, really good value. As long as you don't think you're going to get all in and completely blown up, and as long as you can actually hit your CS with 8 less AD, then this is a very, very good item. Okay, 270% efficient at, you know, around 12 or 13 minutes, right? So 10 minutes into the laning phase, once minions actually start coming down. It's really, really good. Okay, so you might be asking yourself then, okay, well, if this is so good, why haven't we seen it now? Why are people still not doing it very much? A lot of the pros are doing it, right? So if we look... every pro on every AD carry is going to be doing this right now, okay? Targon. It's just Targon everywhere, right? Unless they sell it. If they have 6 items, a lot of times they'll sell it. Or if they just like feel like they need to sell it later on, they're just in a really bad position, they might sell it. But you're not going to be seeing Doran's Blades or Doran's Shields anymore. It is all Targons everywhere, okay? So that's for Vayne. Twitch. All Targons. I should have opened the video with this, just showing people that this is not just some weird thing that I came up with. I'm actually slightly late to this train. I didn't realize some of these shifts, which we'll talk about here in a second. All Targons. Draven might get Doran's. Face of the Mountain. I don't know if I'd go that far. He's still... some of them are getting something other than Targons, but it's very rare. Almost everybody's getting Targons, right? Unless you get to 6 items. So it doesn't matter which AD carry it is. You're going to get it on everybody. I think even like Jhin would probably still get Targons. What is he getting? I guess people are just selling their items. Maybe they're selling their Dorans. I don't see any starting items. Okay, Dorans. So some people start with Doran. Some people will start with like Doran's Ring sometimes. People are still getting Doran's Blade some on Jhin, and the reason is he's like the quintessential like hardcore early game champion. So he really wants that damage early, and he has great sort of AD scaling and ratios. But a lot of them are still considering Targons. But Jhin loses late game, so you don't want to farm it off and go to late. But a lot of them are still getting Targons there. I can look at Misfortune. That'll be it. So Misfortune is another super early game champion. Where people might be tempted to start with Doran still. on her. Some people are. Frost Queens. What? Oh, that's the support. Misfortune. Okay. But yeah, as you can see, on most AD carries, except for like the most hardcore of hardcore early game champions, like Misfortune and Jin, you're going to be seeing these Targons. So what's up with that? Why are people doing that now? Why haven't people done it in the past? What's changed? Well, we have seen it in the past, and if you recall, we're seeing quite a bit of that at Worlds in the Ardent Sensor meta. And the reason for that is Ardent Sensor and healing and shielding supports were forcing a standoff in the early game because that was so powerful that people were just farming off early game, and that was the best thing to do, was to scale towards late game, because you couldn't apply enough pressure early game after they nerfed Caitlyn in particular, and some other stuff near the end of last season. It was just a farm off meta, and that's where Targon's was good, and people started getting it. It's even better now than it was then. So we have seen it in the past in a farm off meta, and that's what we're going towards now, is another farm off meta in bot lane, so that's why Targon's is coming into play. So what specifically has changed in this meta? Why didn't we see it earlier in the preseason, even if we saw it near the end of last season? Well, early in this season, the meta was heavily defined by early game power, early game pressure. So if we think of some of the most powerful things, did I close my runes? Let me see here. If you look at some of those powerful things that were going on, like right off the gate, was Aerie. And I told you all, if you watch my videos, that Aerie was going to be the most overpowered rune. And she was, and she got nerfed. Now, they didn't nerf the healing component of her, the healing shielding, so she still is like a pretty good option on champions like Lulu, Sona, Janna, but she has nowhere near the early game presence that she did. So Aerie got nerfed a lot, and this is the big thing. And it doesn't seem like a lot. Some people are like, oh, it's not going to matter. It matters a lot. I mean, taking it from 20 to 15, it's a 25% damage reduction early game. So that was a really big deal in 7.23. And so people were running Aerie on Sona in particular. You're seeing a lot of Sona, Lulu, Zyra, Misfortune, Jin. All these champions were running Aerie, bottom lane, and it was just an oppressive amount of poke and oppressive amount of damage. Now, Comet still kind of does that with Jin and Misfortune, but they have specifically nerfed Misfortune quite a lot as well. I won't pull her up, but they nerfed her, the cooldown on her E, and they nerfed all of the lethality items by taking 2 lethality off of each one of those items. And they've specifically nerfed sorcery several times. They nerfed Aerie, they nerfed Mana Flow Ban, they nerfed Celerity, and they nerfed Scorch. All of these were very, well, I guess not Celerity, but the other ones are very early game powerhouse picks. Celerity is actually surprisingly really good. That extra 1% move speed is a pretty big deal for trading in and out in fights. I mean, that's basically like an extra flat, like 10 move speed, if you want to think of it like that, right? Well, not that much. It's like an extra, like, 3.5 move speed or something. It was giving you a total of, with the 4%, it was giving you a total of like 15 move speed, and now it's giving you like 11 or 12, depending on your base move speed. So that's significant. The Scorch one was huge. It used to do 30 damage at level 1, and now it only does 20. So they cut that damage in a third there. And then Mana Flow Ban basically refunds 25% less mana, because it went from 60-second cooldown to 75-second cooldown. That's a, 25% increase in the cooldown, right? Because there's 15, 1/4 of 60. So it's 25% less mana that you're getting off of that. So these are some pretty big numbers. I mean, 25% less damage on Aerie, 25% less mana on Mana Flow Band, 30% less damage on Scorch, 33%. And 25% less bonus movement speed on Celerity. If you put it like that, that's a lot of nerfs. And they nerfed the base damage that sorcery gives you. So they nerfed the amount of AD that you get and the amount of AP that you get off of this. So they've nerfed this tree like 5 times, and they nerfed everything that was really popular. Comet's still alright. They've nerfed all this other stuff in conjunction with lethality. So that means they took a lot of the power out of the early game, because that was, like, games were ending so quickly. It was one of the fastest metas I think I've ever seen. It was about as fast as last preseason's meta, maybe even a little faster than that. But yeah, and culprits of this have also been individually nerfed. So we've seen Sona nerfed a lot. Like, Sona just nerfed into the ground. Zyra's nerfed. Leona's nerfed a lot. Leona's been nerfed by the nerf bat like 3 times. Jin was nerfed several times, and Miss Fortune was nerfed several times. So they nerfed all of the runes. They nerfed a lot of the items, like lethality items that were really popular on Jin and Miss Fortune, and they directly nerfed the champions themselves. They've nerfed like 3 different aspects of the early game. And this extends the laning phase and allows for more scaling because people aren't going to get killed as much, so you're not going to be able to pressure towers, and people are going to get to sit there and farm off. Another thing that they have nerfed is they nerfed Press the Attack, PTA, and Triumph. Not several times, but once each. So they reduced the healing on Triumph by 20%. Pull these up here. So Triumph went from 15% down to 12%, and now Press the Attack no longer triggers that third attack on the actual hit itself. You have to start hitting them after that, which is quite a lot. I mean, it's basically 12% less damage on that third attack, right? Because it was triggering the 12%. So it doesn't seem like a huge deal, but once again, with a lot of the trading patterns, you hit people 3 times, and that's usually it for small trades in lane. Now it does a lot less damage right there. So that's another thing that's been nerfed. And this opens up a spot in these slots because those runes were so powerful, they were crowding out any competition. Like, you always got Press the Attack no matter what, for the first couple of patches of preseason. And then here, you always got Triumph just about no matter what, unless you're Kassadin and you're running Presence of Mind. All AD carries got Triumph no matter what. It was just too good. They also nerfed Coup de Grace by a little bit. Which does, it lowers the damage overall in lane. Not a ton compared to some of these other changes, but it does lower the damage a little bit overall. So all of this means lower damage in lane. So if we're keeping tabs here, they've nerfed all the champions that were oppressive early. They nerfed all of the runes those champions built, and they've nerfed several of the items that were very oppressive and early too. And they nerfed some of these other runes in the precision tree that crowded out competition, and that were also pretty good in the early game. Okay, so this opened up spots for other options, and also buffed Fleet Footwork and Overheal a whole lot, especially Fleet Footwork, and I talked about this in my 7.24b patch notes video. That is a massive, massive buff. So let's look at this. Alright, Fleet Footwork, I don't remember if I have it up here, I don't think I do. Here we go. Let's grab it. Okay, so what did they do to Fleet Footwork in 7.24b that has made it such a standout thing? Well, it gets compared to Warlord's Bloodlust, but the issue is before this most recent patch, it did not get any bonus for critical strikes. Okay? So it was no bonus for critical strikes. And I compare all this in my 7.24 video if you want kind of the long math, but I've got just some really quick math here for you. So basically, this is what it was before. Your next basic attack restores a pretty small amount with only a 10% bonus AD, has no interaction with crit. Okay, that's it. Sucked. Absolutely awful, okay? Way, way better now. So they lowered the base heal by a little bit, whatever, early game. They gave it 30% more, or 20% more bonus AD, which is massive. just think about this. Okay, what'd they lower it by? At max level 10? You'd only have to have 50 bonus AD to make up for that. Because you're getting 20% extra bonus AD. So if you just buy anything that has 50 AD on it, then it's going to be higher than this number. It's like a BF sword and change. So, yeah. And then late game, obviously, that's going to scale really, really hard. If you find yourself with 30% AD or something, or 200 AD rather. I don't know where I was saying 30%. 30% of 200 AD, that's massive. And this is the really big one here. Now the critical strike modifies the heals. You get 40% extra. If you have an Infinity Edge, you get 60% extra healing. That is a lot of healing. And you have to understand that this does not interact with armor. Okay? This is strictly you hit them, you get that heal. Okay? And this is why this is important. Alright? This is why it's different from Lifesteal and why it's so incredibly strong right now with a lot of these other interactions that we'll talk about here in a second. But let's say you're level 11, you have 100 bonus attack damage just for easy mass, you have an Infinity Edge, and then you're just getting 20 extra AD from somewhere, right? Like maybe you have a longsword, maybe you took eyeball collection, any number of things, whatever. You have 100 bonus AD. At level 11 with an Infinity Edge, you're going to get 37 base, and then you're going to get 30% of your bonus AD, which is 30. You have Infinity Edge, you crit, so you're going to get you're going to get 60% more, which is a 1.6 modifier. That's going to give you 107 HP. And this is not modified by enemy armor, okay? So this is even better against mega tanks. In this example, I'm just assuming that the enemy has like 50 armor, a very low amount of armor. Okay, this is just like basic armor scaling on a squishy champion. They're going to have like 50 armor in the mid game, okay? If you're facing something like a 200 AD Rammus or a 200 AD Maokai or something, or 200 armor rather, Rammus or 200 armor Maokai, this is going to be exponentially better. Okay? But even at this rate, it's still really good. So here's where you can read about that. We've got lifesteal here. Lifesteal is calculated from the actual damage done to the enemy after armor and all other forms of damage reduction. Okay? So if you hit somebody for 100, but they have a ton of armor, and you only deal 30, you only lifesteal off that 30. You do not lifesteal off that full 100. On Fleet Footwork, you lifesteal off the full amount. It doesn't matter how much armor they have or how much damage you're even actually dealing. All that matters is that you hit somebody. And then, did you crit? Yes or no? And then that's how you determine your healing. Okay? So, let's look at some math. So, let's say that you have Blade of the Ruined King instead at level 11. Maybe you're thinking, oh, I'm vain. I want to run Blade of the Ruined King. I need some lifesteal. Well, your total attack damage in this scenario, I'm going to give you 120. Because you got to remember, this is total attack damage now and not bonus attack damage, okay? So I was assuming in the previous scenario your bonus attack was 100 because you're going to have plus 20 from, runes and just odds and ends, and you're going to have Infinity Edge, okay? I guess Infinity Edge is 70 AD now, but whatever. Just say you have 30 more for this example. With Blade of the Ruined King, just to make it simple, I'm going to say that you have 80 base AD, okay, because that's what you would have around level 11. And then Blade of the Ruined King only gives you 40 AD. So you'd have 120 total AD. And then you tumble with crit, or you tumble with your Q, and you get 50% more AD. Okay, so that's a 180 hit. Alright, so you're hitting them for 180. You have 12% lifesteal against 50 armor. So 180. 50 armor is going to reduce it by 33%. If you ever wonder how you determine the reduction on armor, you take 100 divided by 100 plus the armor. So if they have 50 armor divided by 150. And that's how much damage they're actually taking. They're only taking 66.6 repeating percentage of the damage that you're dealing. So that's how you do it. It's real simple. It's just 100 divided by 100 plus the armor. So if they have 100 armor, it'd be 100 divided by 100 plus 100 is 200. They take 50% damage. If they have 200 armor divided by 300, they take 33% damage. So that's how you figure that out if you never knew how that works. Okay, so anyways, you're going to heal for about 14.5 HP per hit. So that means that one Fleet Footwork hit heals for about 7 Blade of the Ruined King hits. Okay? Now, once again, you can wiggle around with the math a little bit. You can say, well, the bonus AD is actually only going to be 80, or it's actually only going to be 90, or, something like that. But the bottom line is, it is many multiples times more efficient than a Blade of the Ruined King hit. Now, yes, you do have to charge it with Energizer, and you get that Blade hit on every single hit. Blade also does full, after armor, full healing amount against creeps, so you can heal off of creeps really well. Whereas you only get, I think it's 40% out of Fleet Footwork when you hit creeps. So it doesn't work as well if you're hitting creeps. 60% against creeps, okay? So they are different, but I just wanted to show you this specific type of healing that is not modified by armor is much, much more powerful than it at first appears, because it's modified by crit, but not modified by armor. Okay, so other things to keep in mind about this: rapid fire cannon increases the charges of fleet footwork by 25%. Okay, so anything that interacts with energized interacts with this. So it's the same thing as Warlord's Bloodlust. So you become energized 25% faster. So that means you're going to get 25% more of these fleet footwork hits. That also applies to Static Shiv. So whenever you get energized, you attack people, it's going to crit, heal you for a lot, and the static's going to crit and go all over the place. And you're going to get this extra range. So you can shoot people from 100 range away to proc the energized hit on them, and to proc the Static Shiv on them. So, God, my hair is just... I just want to shave my head sometimes. Anyways, hopefully my hair will behave here. But that's what it is now. So now that it procs with crits, it's just like the old Energizer builder. It's very similar to it, but probably even more healing than that used to give. So that's a really, really powerful interaction. The fact that you also get 30% extra movement speed for 1 second is actually pretty relevant, too. It allows you to kite people, chase them down, and it helps heal you through the lane. Versus something like Lifesteal that you're not going to get very often. I mean, I guess you can get it with like Doran's Blade early on, but it gives you some nice healing through lane, and it combos very well with Overheal, which we're going to talk about right now, pretty much. So, yeah, it's a massive, massive buff. The fact that it can now crit and heal for just an insane amount, and that it scales very well with bonus attack damage, just makes this very, very good sustain in lane. So combined with a lot of this other nerf to early game pressure, you now have pretty decent sustain in lane that actually scales into the late game to give you some really good sustain in late game team fights, and really good protection against poke later on. And really good kiting potential against tanks, because you get that extra 30% move speed. So that's very good. Okay, and so that means that you want the Energizer build again. We'll talk about that here in a second. But we're back to Energizer build. You want to play champions that can go Infinity Edge, Static Shiv, Rapid Fire Cannon, just like we had for a lot of last season. And you saw that specifically with a lot of Caitlyn, with a lot of Tristana, Twitch, and now after the most recent buffs to Vayne, like I guess 4 patches ago at this point, then that becomes a very powerful collection of runes or items for her as well. Okay, so Overheal was the other thing that's changed. This is kind of a big deal. So let's look at Overheal really quickly. So this was widely regarded as just garbage for a lot of the time, and that's true. And the reason that it was garbage, once again, is there was so much early game pressure, and this just did not interact with what people wanted to do, which is just kill people early on. You just wanted to massacre people with your huge, like, knock off half their health with your press the attack, or just completely, knock off like 1/3 of someone's health with Sona, Airy plus Scorch, Q poke her ass. There are just much more powerful things you wanted to be doing in lane rather than just sitting around overhealing. And you were never going to be sitting at full health anyways, because they were always going to be harassing and poking you out. Whether it was Misfortune, Sona, Nami, Lulu, Karma, Jhin, all of these champions were going to stick damage onto you. Okay, because there just was not much sustain earlier on in the season, because everybody was just getting as much damage as possible and just trying to kill each other in lane. Okay, so that the meta itself made this item bad. It also had very poor scaling that they just recently changed. So now the conversion rate for self-heal is 40% and not 30%. So that's a nice little booster. I mean, it's an extra 1/3 conversion rate. But the more important thing is that the early game has been nerfed. People are going to be getting Targons. People are going to be getting Fleet Footwork. So all of those heal you, and your support is most likely going to have Targons. Or a heal. Or both, if it's Tarek. So that means that now you can actually charge this in lane, because you're going to be healing so much off of all of these things, and you're not going to be getting bursted as much, because the enemy is also going to be sitting there just healing up with Fleet Footwork and Targon's Brace, that both people are just going to be sitting there on big shields. And the thing to keep in mind about this is as long as you keep hitting minions in lane at least once every 6 seconds, you get to keep this shield. So it's almost like having 10% of your maximum health. And then later on in the game, if other people are healing you, like if it's a Soraka or something like that, then you're going to get overhealed for a ton. So you're going to get up to 300%. So not only is it kind of equal to flat health, but it's also health that can be converted over the cap, and that also gets a huge modifier on the healing from any kind of healing support that you may have on your team. So, and then Triumph was so good too, because it used to give 15%, now it's 12%, and Overheal now converts even more. And so it's a combination of the strongest thing got weaker, and then Overheal got stronger, and Overheal is now trending with the meta right now. So Overheal applies to Fleet Footwork, Targon, Taste of Blood, Ravenous Hunter, and support stuff, like support Targon, support healing, all that kind of stuff. And Taste of Blood and, if we look at these, Taste of Blood and the other healing one, Ravenous Hunter, are very popular right now, especially with Overheal. Just makes it impossible to push someone out of lane when you've got Targons plus Taste of Blood, you know, plus Overheal, plus Fleet Footwork, plus Ravenous Hunter, plus a support that also has Targons and or a heal. You're just never going to push anyone out of lane anymore, hardly. So, that's a lot of healing that's going on. And of course, you know, the more of that you have, the better Overheal is going to be. So less early game damage in the meta means that there's a much higher value on sustain, because it doesn't really matter what your sustain is if you go from 100 to 0 in a fight. But if it's just little small chip damage, then obviously sustain becomes much more powerful. So the minimum value in the mid game is about 160 health. If you're thinking, okay, you get 10 base on the Overheal, and then it's 10% of your max health. So if you have 1500 health, you know, in the mid game, then that's going to be about 160 HP, which is a 426 gold value. Now, it's not assuming that you're going to stack up even more shield over time, which you will. So, as you get, so it's 426 is the minimum number, and it's probably worth a lot more than that, depending on, you know, how often you're getting healed by the support, how often you're able to get to your max HP and beyond, with things like Fleet Footwork. So a lot of that depends, but at a base value, 426 is really nice, especially for the kind of extra conversion that this gives you in lane, because it gives you, you know, if you're at full health, normally if you overheal with Fleet Footwork or Targons or whatever, it's just a wasted stat, and now it actually converts that stat into something useful. So it's really hard to figure out the value of this, but just at a bare minimum, if you walk into a fight and you have a full shield on, it's 10% of your health, it's going to be 426 value. So it's a really good value right now. So what does all this mean? So we've got Overheal, we've got Fleet Footwork, we've got Targon. How is this affecting the meta overall? Especially how is this going to affect AD carries and supports? And once again, I'm going to have, you know, full, more in-depth like tier lists and stuff like that, especially for support and probably for AD carry once the season comes out. But I just want to touch on a few of these things right now and what I've been seeing and what I think is going to trend up even more. So this massive sustain gives a free lane for scaling. Okay, so you have all the healing stuff. Once again, Targon, Fleet, Taste, Overheal, anything the support does, and Energizer's back. So because Fleet Footwork now synergizes so well with the Energizer build, then anything that can go Infinity Edge, Static Shiv, Rapid Fire Cannon is going to be in a very good place. So that's primarily going to be, Vayne, Tristana, Xayah are good candidates for that. Twitch is also good. Twitch uses Hurricane, so he's probably not going to have Rapid Fire Cannon, which, you know, does make him a little bit less, not less good. What's the word I'm looking for here? He doesn't have as insane of synergy as someone like Vayne does with it. But he's still Twitch. He's still really good, right? Anytime Twitch gets a free pass in lane, it doesn't really matter what his itemization is. He's still going to be a force late game. So Twitch is still a very high priority, even though he's not going to get Hurricane most of the time. I guess you could get, or not Hurricane, Rapid Fire Cannon. I guess you could get Rapid Fire on him, but I still think Hurricane's probably what you want. Although I don't know. I mean, maybe Rapid. Like the reason you get Hurricane on Twitch is because it applies his poison to multiple people in a fight. So I think you still have to get Hurricane. And you don't want more than 3 crit items because you're just going to go over the crit caps. You always go Infinity Edge plus 2 Zeal items. Yeah, everybody's still getting Hurricane. And then it also helps later on if you want to go Blade of the Ruined King because all of your Hurricane bolts apply Blade of the Ruined King in addition to your poison. So that's just a synergy that's just too powerful to pass up. You got to get the Hurricane on Twitch. So he's not going to have the Rapid Fire Cannon, which means that he's not going to get as many Fleet Footwork or Static Shiv procs, but whatever. He's still going to be really strong. But yeah, I think that Vayne definitely... I think Vayne's just going to be banned all the time in solo queue. If you're not banning Vayne, you need to highly consider it if your team doesn't have her. Because she's so strong with all of this stuff. I talked about this in my most recent AD carry tier list video, but she loves going Infinity Edge, Rapid Fire Cannon, Static Shiv. That's awesome. I mean, some Vaynes would like to go like Phantom Dancer and stuff like that, but Rapid Fire is fine. It's fine for that. It makes sure that you get the first hit, and more importantly, it allows you to charge your Rapid Fire Cannon itself, your Static Shiv, and your Fleet Footwork even faster, and you're going to get those massive crits. So it's almost impossible to deal with Vayne because you can't poke her out of lane anymore, and she just scales so hard with this crit build, especially with her Q. Now, yeah, her Q can't crit anymore, but she gets much longer, or she gets a much higher base AD, and she gets to spend much longer in her ult than she used to. So, and she can split push because like no one can 1v1 her once she gets 3 items. If she's confident at all, it's going to be very, very difficult to 1v1 her. So Vayne is just a beast right now. She's, almost impossible to deal with. If you have a Vayne on your team and they have anything other than Twitch, you're probably just going to win. I mean, if the game goes to 25 minutes, unless the Vayne is just an absolute turkey. And I played with some Vaynes yesterday that like started off like 1-9 or something, like almost literally 1-9. I'm trying to remember. It was something like that, and they still came back and did a lot of damage. That's the sign that there's something wrong with that champion. If that's what's happening. I'm trying to remember which game that was. I think it was this one. Is this it? Maybe it wasn't 1-9. She started like 1-5 or something, and she's not even getting, like, she ended up getting like Gensu's Rage Blade, which really don't like that item on Vayne because she doesn't have anything she can do with the AP. Maybe it was this one. I've seen a couple of Vaynes. Yeah, it was this one. She was literally 1-9 to start. And she still came back and did it, considering she was 1-9, yes, she has less damage than everybody else. But, considering she's 1-9, she still put up some decent damage. That's not awful. So yeah, Vayne is just very, very strong because she gets a pass. Twitch is another one. He's always good, especially if you can't pressure him. And right now, you're not going to pressure Twitch out of lane with this stuff. You have to have like Leona plus Jhin, and Twitch is just really far out of position, and they're not playing a very good bodyguard support. And then you might be able to kill Twitch. So, like, if they're playing something like, Lulu Twitch or something like that, and you're playing, Ignite Leona with Jhin, like, maybe you can kill Twitch if you get a hold of him. But outside of those kinds of extremes, it's going to be very, very difficult to punish Twitch enough to where he's going to be irrelevant later. Now, Trist has kind of been the forgotten warrior, and I'm not sure why Trist fell out of favor as much as she has. See, how's she doing in kind of the pro scene here? So I'm not exactly sure why she's fallen out of favor, but I think Fleet Footwork's going to help her a lot. I know they did nerf her some. I didn't think it was that bad, but I think you're going to see more of her now as a proxy. I think that Vayne and Twitch are better, but I think that Vayne's going to be banned a lot, and I suspect that Twitch pretty soon, like once people start banning Vayne, then people start banning Twitch also. I feel like both of those are going to be banned a lot. And I think she's kind of like the third string here. No, she's also very safe compared to them. So she scales really high. Pull her up real quick. I'm trying to remember what did they nerf about her anyways. I know they nerfed her bomb. like her bomb damage a little bit. Because I mean, Trist was everywhere at Worlds. Like she was, you know, Kalista was banned all the time. Xayah was often either they banned Rakan or they banned Xayah. And then Trist was very popular, and I thought she won a decent amount. I know she was really, really good near the end of last season for a while. Let's see. Okay, so 722. They increased the damage on explosive charge a little bit. That was at the start of the preseason. Bonus AD ratio lowered at higher levels by a decent chunk. And that's it. I think people have just forgotten about her. I think you're going to see more of her early game. I mean, she was probably pressured out early by Jhin and Miss Fortune. She just really didn't have a great keystone, but now she can use Fleet Footwork, which I think will be really good. So she does scale very well later in the game. She can get aggressive early, although I don't think that matters as much in this meta. But the fact that you can still get 110% extra attack speed with her, and she gets massive range, she's super safe. That's the thing. She can use her ult to knock people away. She can jump away with her rocket jump. She sieges very well. And that's something that Vayne and Twitch do not do very well, because she takes towers really quick with explosive charge. She has really good wave clear with that explosive... Not really good, but like pretty good wave clear with that explosive charge. And she just has really long range also. So that's much better for taking towers. So you're just not as susceptible to getting picked off by skill shots. So I think people have forgotten about Triss. I think she's definitely going to make a comeback here. She loves that Energizer build. It's great. So yeah, I think those are probably going to be the ones you'll see a lot. I think we'll also see Xayah quite a bit. Xayah likes Fleet Footwork. She does scale very well also. She likes the Energizer build. I think Xayah might actually go Essence Reaver, which is not as good for Energizer, but still pretty legit. Yeah. Yeah, she doesn't go full-on Energizer, which is, you know, a thing with Fleet Footwork, but if you're still going Infinity Edge, like, I feel like her build is Reaver plus Zeal Item and then Infinity Edge. So she goes big AD crits, because once again, you don't want to overdo it on the crit, right? So you don't want 2 Zeal Items plus Essence Reaver plus Infinity Edge. But, you know, Xayah's problem usually is, so she wants that build. That's a very expensive build, right? Because Essence Reaver and Infinity Edge are so much more expensive than Zeal Items. They're about 1,000 more gold. But now that the games are extending, they're lasting a bit longer. You get to get through the laning phase. She has really low range. A lot of people forget about that, but she only has 525 range. So, you know, she can, in theory, get poked out early, and she's just not strong until she gets a little bit of AD and crit behind her. But she becomes very strong once she gets 3 items, specifically these 3 very expensive items. So Essence Reaver plus Infinity Edge plus usually Static Shiv. And then she starts hitting like a truck. And the thing is, her feathers, when they come back, they scale off of crit and they scale off of AD very heavily. So she's very good in team fights, and she's very good if people are trying to dive her. So, and she's relatively safe because of her ultimate. So, I think that she's going to be positioned pretty well right now. Like, once again, Vayne has to be banned. Twitch probably has to be banned. She's safer than Twitch. She has more burst damage than Twitch. It's similar, I guess, but I think we'll see a bit more Xayah. I also think that Rakan is super good right now. I think if he's not the best support, he's certainly in the top 3. And anytime Rakan's good, Xayah's going to be good. So, I think Xayah is another one that's going to benefit very heavily. And finally, Jinx. To a lesser extent, I would never pick Jinx if Twitch is open. I think Twitch is just strictly a better version of Jinx. But you could see some Jinx. You know, especially if Vayne and Twitch are banned and you just want someone on your team who has the hyper carry status. Now, she's going to be getting Hurricane. So Jinx is going to have, you know, Infinity Edge, Hurricane, probably Static Shiv. But she can hit like a truck. As you can see, the win percentage is much, much lower at very high levels of play. That doesn't mean that she's completely worthless. Like, she's going to be a lot better at bronze and silver. But the issue with Jinx is she has no escape. She has no way to get away from anything. Like, Vayne can roll and reposition and knock people back. Twitch can go invisible and gets resets on kills and assists. Of course, Tristana's like super safe, can jump away from anything. And then, just everybody, Xayah can ult and kind of get away, and she can stun people and kite them. So, she can be good, she can pop off, but it's really dicey. I mean, I guess after you get a kill or an assist, you run around really fast, so you can kind of dodge people there. You do have your flame chompers. But she's just a lot more dangerous. And I don't think that she necessarily does things better than Twitch. I guess she has the crit, so like if you get some really good, just like massive rocket crits in a fight, because here's the thing, like whenever she goes into her rocket form with the hurricane and she shoots something, then all 3 of those rockets do area of effect damage. Those 3 people, like the person in the middle is probably getting hit 9 times. Right, so each one, well, not 9, 6 times. So each one of the, each one of them is getting hit 3 times, which is 9 total hits, is what I mean to say, right? Because each rocket splashes to hit the other 2 people near them, and there's 3 rockets. So basically each person gets hit by each bolt, so it's 9 hits on 3 people every time you shoot. A total of 9 hits per shot. Obviously that's really good, and each one of those can crit as well. So she hits like a truck in clumped up team fights as long as you have someone that can hold the enemy still for a while. You have an Amumu, a Rakan, Sejuani, stuff like that can hold them still and just let Jinx auto attack. That's going to be really good. So, she can be good. She can be good. The nerf to Ardent hurts because Ardent does interact well with Hurricane, and the same thing with Twitch with Hurricane, is they liked it a lot better when Ardent was super good. But nevertheless, I mean, you're going to get to farm, you're going to get to make it through the lane, so you can definitely be a force later. Now, I took Kog'Maw could be in the conversation. He's a very good scaling champion that likes to have free laning phases, but he doesn't use the Energizer build, so he can go fleet footwork. And I'm sure he probably does. Everybody's doing it. Yeah. And he does have a pretty good win rate. But he doesn't have the Energizer build, so it's not going to be as good because he's not going to have Infinity Edge. But, he does get a free pass, and once he gets usually Ginsu's Hurricane, Blazer, and King, then he's kind of off to the races. So he could definitely be legit. I do think that Ezreal is still good just because, Ezreal still has a pretty high win rate. Just because Kleptomancy gives you so much extra gold, and now you can go Kleptomancy plus Targon's Brace and just really start cranking out that gold. And he just has a lot of mobility and really good poke. So I think that Ezreal's still pretty good as well. But I think you're definitely going to see a rise in Vayne, Twitch, and then sort of a resurgence of Tristana and perhaps Xayah as well recently. So it's Jhin, Misfortune, those type of champions, Caitlyn, are going to have a really, really hard time here. You would think that Caitlyn would be pretty good in this meta, right? Because she really loved the Energizer build before with the Rapid Fire Cannon, Static Shiv, Infinity Edge. But the problem is her attack speed is so low after they nerfed her that she just can't keep up with the scaling on these champions, I don't think. So she needs another buff if she's going to be, back in action. Yeah, she's just... She does like... This is good. This is a step in the right direction for Caitlyn, fleet footwork. But she just doesn't have the attack speed to keep up with these other champions. So, she's alright. I'm fine with Caitlyn not being that viable right now. She's really oppressive when she is viable, and she had her time in the sun. She was really, really good for almost all of last season, so I'm okay with that. Alright, what does this mean for supports? Well... we're back to Ardent Meta 2.0. Yay! Actually, I don't mind that meta, that style of meta, but I think that's what we're back to, and I think a lot of supports are still really slow to adapt this. They don't understand. They're still playing like these hard engaged supports that don't have scaling, and I think that's a mistake, and I think people are going to start figuring that out pretty quickly. So unless you are actively getting kills in lane, you are going to lose if you play something like a Leona, Alistar, stuff like that, because they just don't have the scaling. And I've talked about this in my in past itemization videos, and I'm gonna make a new itemization video for patch 8.1 before the new season starts. I guess in about 9 days. But yeah, so why Ardent 2.0 with the meta? Well, it's a farm off. As you saw, there's so much healing in lane now with the new Fleet Footwork Targon builds that it's you're going to late game unless you're able to force constantly, unless they're just always out of position and you're able to constantly force kills. It's going late, and it's going to be a big problem if you're playing something that doesn't scale that well. So we're not seeing Ardent Censor as much. You would think Ardent would be very good on these like hyper carry AD carries, and to some extent it is, and I think you can get it later in the game. It's okay. It's not awful early on. One of the issues, though, is Resolve is the best tree right now, and I'm going to have to test this out some more and see, but since the Sorcery tree has been nerfed so much to stop the heavy poke champions like Sona, Nami, Lulu early on, but it's also hurt champions that historically are more passive that scale, so most notably Janna, like, you know, but Janna doesn't need some of that stuff, so that's the issue here is, you know, and I tried this the other night. I ran a Janna build that used the Resolve tree, and it was actually pretty good. So Janna doesn't need Mana Flow Band. She doesn't really need Celerity. Like, it's a cute interaction with her passive, but she's already really fast, realistically. She doesn't need this. She doesn't really need Scorch. I mean, people were building Janna and, like, maxing W and trying to make her this early game bully, and it's like, you can kind of do that, but that's not really what Janna's good at. That's not her thing. You know, she's trying to be somebody that she isn't, right? It's like that, I don't know, really preppy kid that comes to school one day and is, like, dating this, you know, emo girl, and all of a sudden he comes to school with, like, you know, some guy liner on or, you know, whatever, and you're just like, dude, that is not you, man. Like, come on. Or, you know, the really emo girl comes to school and tries to dress really preppy one day and sit with, like, the super cool kids or something. You're like, man, that's not you. What are you doing? Like, come on. So that's what I feel like with Janna. People were trying to, you know, get her to be somebody that she's just not with this early game aggression. So, I don't know. Like, Ares obviously still really good on her, like, with the shielding. But if you look over at Resolve, I mean, this solves some of the big problems early on that someone... And I talk about Janna specifically because I have a lot of games on Janna. If you've watched my channel, I have a lot. I had over 600 games on Janna last season, like 57 or 58% win rate I ended with, and I'm still doing very well in the preseason with her, even though she's been... People would think she's had a rough time this preseason. She's like the number 4 support or something right now, though, I think, last time I looked. At least statistically. She's number 2 now. So look at that. Looky. The champions that scale really well, that are healing, shielding supports, are all coming back up, right? Most notably Tarek and Janna. Now, Sona's not coming back, probably. She's at 50%, though, even after those, like, massive nerfs. But yeah, two of the biggest indicators of kind of the, you know, the new age Ardent meta are both up at the top again. So, anyways, I do think that running a Resolve Janna, like if you run Guardian, it's pretty good. It gets plus 20% HP. Don't forget this heals you and your ally, so it gives you a little bit more protection as Janna also. Just the fact that you get 145 HP is massive early game too. It makes it really hard to pick you off. And Font of Life is actually, it's only 1% of your max health, which isn't amazing on Janna, but the fact that if you want to get Ardent later on, you know, you can proc it on a ton of different people just by using, like, W or something, marking somebody with Font of Life, or Tornado hitting them, or whatever. Then your whole team can get that Ardent buff. So, you know, it's okay. It's legit. I mean, if you're going for later on in the game, you're going to have Ruby Sightstone and Redemption if you're going for the Ingenious Hunter build, which I always do. And you get the 145 health off of Resolve, so you are going to, you know, be sitting at maybe like 2,000 health or something, so that's pretty decent healing. And then you get Revitalize, which is great, so that gives you extra shield power and healing, so it's not awful. It's not awful to go for Guardian, Font, Conditioning, Revitalize on Janna. It's going to make you a lot more durable. Obviously, you're going to have a little bit less AP. You're losing Area is the big thing, so Area is a nice, repeatable, you know, shield booster that you could get. So Aerie, it sucks to lose Aerie, of course. But Mana Flow Band you don't care about. You don't have mana problems. You're already fast. You don't need celerity that much. And Scorch is irrelevant, after like the first 5 minutes of the game on someone like Janna most of the time. Because once again, like Poke doesn't matter. Scorch doesn't matter. They're going to heal through it. They're going to have Targons, Fleet Footwork, all this other crap. The 20 damage that you do, every 20 seconds or whatever is not going to matter in this meta. It mattered a lot earlier, and it's certainly not going to matter for Janna because you're not going to be able to apply enough pressure. So Scorch is basically worthless on Janna. Celerity is okay, but not anything amazing on Janna. Mana Flow Band is unnecessary. Aerie is good, but you can get all of this stuff. So I don't know. That might be the new age thing to do, is to go resolve into domination on Janna. Maybe some other people. I mean, maybe it's good on Lulu too. I don't know. I haven't tried it. But I think Lulu is someone who applies more pressure, though, early. So the Aerie damage and Scorch and all that stuff is actually really good on Lulu. But at least on Janna, I think this might be an option that would be interesting. But yeah, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more Taric, Janna, Rakan, Lulu, Tahm Kench, and Soraka. And, the builds, if it's like a serious tank, you're going to see Face the Mountain Locket, Knight's Vow, Ruby Sightstone. If it is someone like Janna, an Enchanter type of champion, you're probably going to be seeing Redemption Locket, Mikhail, Ruby Sightstone. Okay, I think Ingenious Hunter is extremely good and undervalued. I talk about it all the time. As each one of these has 3 activatables: Face, Locket, Knight, Redemption, Locket, Mikhail. And they all want Ruby Sightstone. Very good. Very good with Ingenious Hunter. So, Janna, I just explained, great at scaling. Taric, great at scaling, very tanky. So Taric has a nice luxury because he can also go Targons early for the extra healing, right? So that works so well with Overheal and just everything that's going on in this meta, as if the support goes Targon also. So he can go Targon and scale as a healing, shielding support. And he has so many options for what he can do. So he can go, he will go Face. He could go Knight's Vow, he could go Locket, he could go Redemption. Taric does have some mana problems early, so I think you need some mana item. I usually go Redemption. It's also conceivable that you could go something like a Zeke's Convergence. If you have like a Twitch that's really far ahead, or a Vayne, like that might be an option. That's a little awkward because it has a really long cooldown ultimate. You could go something like Frozen Fist or Frozen Heart, or not Frozen Fist, Frozen Heart or Iceborne Gauntlet. It used to be called Frozen Fist, like really far back in the day. But yeah, I think you do need some kind of mana item. He does have the option of going Mikhail's, which is really important in this meta because we're seeing more Morgana pop up. Morgana is very pesky, but Mikhail is completely wrecks her. We're seeing more Morgana, Ashe, just a bunch of really annoying hard CC champions. Even something like a Leona, Thresh, stuff like that. Mikhail's is just so good. And so any champion that can run Mikhail's is going to be pretty good right now. Also, the plus healing and shielding has a great, it's a great combo with Redemption. So, that's interesting. You might say, well, why don't I have Morgana on here if Morgana's really hot? Morg can do well, and she does do well against hard engaged support. So if you're against something like a Blitz or a Thresh or a Leona, she is good, but I prefer Tahm Kench. Tahm Kench has a similar role, but the issue is Tahm Kench can also get people like retroactively out of problems. So, if someone gets hit with an arrow, like, maybe you weren't there in time, right? Maybe you're rotating and someone gets hit and they're getting chain CC'd. You can just pull them out with Tahm Kench. Tahm Kench also can run the Relic Shield line, right? So Tahm Kench can do the Face the Mountain Locket Knight's Vow, which is going to be really nice. Also, Morgana, like, that shield doesn't protect you against AD champions, so it's not really going to save you from that Vayne just running down and killing your AD carry. I mean, Tahm Kench doesn't have a lot of great answers to that either, but might just be that I have a lot more experience on Tahm Kench. I just feel like he brings a lot more to the table than Morg does. He also, like, crushes Morg. Because she can't, anytime she lands a Q on somebody, Tahm Kench just cancels it. So Tahm Kench just has very good matchups against a lot of the other hard engaged champions. And I just think he's a bit flexible and scales a bit better than Morgana does. But, that might be personal preference. Morgana does have a better initiate if she hits a Q on somebody. So we'll see. But I think that Tom is very well positioned. Now, if you're playing Tom, you want to make sure that you have visibility of the AD carries typically. You either need to be, like, you only want to play Tom if you have the higher scaling team. So if they have to go to you and kill you or you win, Tom's great. So if you have the Vayne and they have the Jhin or something like that, Tom's amazing. But if you have the Jhin and they have the Twitch, that's a problem. Because you can't do anything about that. You can't ever really get on that Twitch to do anything meaningful most of the time. Like, you can flash Q him, I guess, and try to, like, run him down and eat him, but that's usually not a winning strategy. So, Tom's really strong, but only as a counter pick. And then Lulu, obviously, very good with any of these on-hit champions, specifically really good with Twitch. So she doesn't scale as hard with plus healing and shielding because she only has one ability that does that, which is her E. And it got it base shield. She got her base shield nerfed on that, so it's only 210 now instead of 240. Her ult does not count as a heal. It's an infusion of health. So it's not affected by Ignite, but it's also not affected by any plus healing or shielding that you have. So she has really low scaling in that respect, but her W is very nice. So that gives you extra movement speed and extra attack speed on your AD carry. So anyone that, benefits very heavily from attack speed, which pretty much all of these do, but specifically Twitch, because the more attack speed he has when his ult is up, the more damage it's going to do, because it only lasts for a very limited amount of time. She's also very good with Vayne. So you could definitely see some more Lulu coming up. Most of the time, I'd probably prefer Janna, but after Janna's shield nerf, Janna really can't do that much until she's she can do stuff, but that shield nerf is pretty significant. So I don't know. Lulu's just a more dangerous version of Janna, and I'm not sure if the extra scaling is worth it or not. Maybe. The issue with Lulu is a big part of Lulu's power comes in her early game harass combined with her late game scaling. So she's kind of like Sona in that respect, but the early game harass is just not going to matter right now. So I would almost just full on go for the late game scaling with someone like Janna, who has better peel than Lulu does. But either way, I think these are going to be the players that you see a lot. You're still going to see people forcing like Shen, most likely. I think Leona's still all right, but the thing with Shen that's really hot now is he actually scales pretty well in terms of damage. So if your team doesn't have a hyper carry damage option, so maybe they picked Jhin and the enemy team has Vayne or Twitch, or like you picked your AD carry picked Jhin and they have a higher scaling AD carry, Shen can kind of equalize some of that. So he does a lot of high percentage damage. He's very good from the support position against tanks later. But he's going to get outscaled so hard, I feel like, by something like a Tarek or a Janna or a Rakan. It's tough. I think you'll see him a lot. He's for early game kill lanes. I'm just not sure that that's where people want to be. You also see Alistar a lot, kind of in Challenger or Pro Play. I think the best engaged champs that you're going to see people play are going to be Shen, Alistar. I think Rakan's going to make a comeback too. I personally think he's awesome. I think he's the most underrated support right now, but we'll see. But I think these are definitely going to be the up-and-comers that maybe you haven't seen a lot of recently that you're going to see a lot more of in the coming month or two. I do think they're going to nerf something about the Resolve tree. So they might nerf the health on it. I wouldn't be surprised if they nerf Aftershock on it. Although, frankly, I think Aftershock is already kind of getting solved because the early game aggressive supports like Leona, like Shen, like Alistar, I think are going to get out-competed by these Guardian type of supports, right? So Rakan, Tarek, I would argue Janna and Tom all want Guardian now, and they don't want Aftershock. So that's going to be a thing. I'm almost certain they're going to nerf something about Targons as well at some point. I'm not sure what it's going to be. What they need to do is just like make it to where it just straight up does not trigger the extra gold if it's a ranged champion. I think that would solve it. That would hurt Thresh. But I think that's what they're going to have to do to stop this, because they don't want to have another Ardent meta. People complain all the time. I don't care about it, but a lot of people are like, oh, it's so boring in bot lane. Oh, it's a snooze fest. Everybody's just farming up till 10 minutes and whatever. I'm fine with that. I just get to sit there and just read the comments on the stream and, just interact with the stream some more, as I'm chilling with Janna and Lane a lot of times. Not, I say that only halfway joking, I guess, but I'm fine with it. It puts a lot of importance on the bot lane. The bot lane matters a lot in the Ardent Sensor kind of meta. Like, what the support does matters a lot. I mean, the supports were the highest winning champions percentage-wise in the, the last 4 months of last year. I was going to say the back half of last year, which I like. Obviously, as a support player, I like to have a lot of agency. I like to have a lot of power and influence in games. I mean, who doesn't? Regardless of which role you play. So I'm okay with it, but I think ultimately that's what they're going to do, is they're going to say that only melee champions can proc this, period. Right now, the execute only works for melee champions, but that doesn't matter as an AD carry. You can get around that because you're just going to be last hitting anyways. But I suspect they're going to make Targons. Now, they don't have this on the public beta server or anything yet. This is just speculation. But I suspect in like 1 or 2 patches, they're going to make Targon melee only. And they might nerf fleet footwork a little bit. I don't know. They should start with Targon and then see from there. What's making all this so strong is all of this combined together. So if they just nerf 1 or 2 things out of it, if they just take Targons out of the equation, then fleet footwork might be okay. But we'll see. For now, I think this is going to be, this is how it's going to be. And I'm fine with it. I like it a lot. I like this kind of meta so much more than I like the, the you die in 1 second meta that was happening earlier, right? Like, you get poked out from Sona for like 75% of your HP at level 2. Like, I like this a lot better, where people just kind of get to, because it's a lot more strategic. It's a lot more based on just positioning, good macro, good game knowledge and stuff like that, rather than just who gets the first hit on the other person. So I like it. Okay, I think Ivern is another one. I've talked about Ivern before when I played him, but I think this might be a meta where Ivern could come back. He got some pretty big buffs. Watch my Ivern video on the channel if you want the most recent one. I guess I did it last week. Ivern in that I had to talk about this. But the reason that I think he could make a comeback is that he can use all of the support items. Like, he can use the tank, a lot of the tank ones, and he can use a lot of the enchanter ones. Now, I think he's better with the enchanter ones, and that's a good option if you have a tank on your team. So if you have a Tahm Kench, or, even if you have a Taric, or a Shen, or an Alistar, or whatever on your team, and they're going to be getting, Face the Mountain, Lock at Night, if they're going that route, you can just go Ivern, and then you can get, something like Redemption, Mikhail's, Athene's Unholy Grail, all of those type of champions. Then you'll have all of it covered. You'll have the Knight's Vow, you'll have the Locket, you'll have the Face the Mountain, and then you'll also have, the Redemption, the Mikhail's. Like, it's just going to be impossible to kill the AD carry with all that stuff going on. It's going to be, like, game of a million shields. And so that's really good if you have, like, 2 or 3 carries on your team, plus a tank support, and then Ivern. So, a good comp for this would be something like Camille, Ivern, Talia, Vayne, Tahm Kench. It'd be a nightmare to face this team if everybody's competent in solo queue. You got your split pusher, who's really strong, that you can protect, who can also initiate fights and lock down targets. You have your, scaling, basically support jungler, who has very diverse jungle pathing. You have your classic push and roam support with really nice scaling. You have your hyperscaling AD carry, and you have your support that basically has a free Quicksilver Sash built into his kit on a 10-second cooldown. So I think all of that would be a really good comp. So I think that Ivern might make a comeback. He might make a comeback just because his scaling as a support item, he's going to get more items, and he just complements hyper carry so well that I think you might be seeing more of that. So, you could still see the Shyvana. You'll still see Shyvana. You'll still see Zen. Stuff like that, but I feel like all of these shields and CC and all this other crap going on is just going to make it really hard for these, melee hyper damage champions that don't have much CC to get in there and do the kind of damage they need to do. Because I don't know how you get through Ivern and Tahm Kench to get to that Vayne. if you're something like a Shyvana. Like, you better one-shot her, and it's just not going to happen through all the shields and heals and everything they're going to have. So it's going to make it really hard. And so I think that you need hyper carries on your team, and you need answers to hyper carries. So you just need some really heavy, like, just high-scaling champions. And a lot of it's just going to be who has a higher scaling AD carry. I mean, that's a big part of it. But it's going to be a very interesting meta. So that's what I think is going to change. I think it's Ardent Sensor meta 2.0. It's going to be a farm-off bot lane who has the better AD carry. And just how well can you protect that AD carry. You know, and Rakan also is the one engaged champion that also scales that I would recommend. So he can start fights if you don't have a fight starter, and he also scales. None of these other champions really start fights that well. So that is one really big perk of Rakan. But that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.